On the night of August 1, 1945, the Japanese city of Toyama was turned into a blazing inferno as 182 B-29 bombers from the 21st Bomber Command rained down thousands of incendiaries filled with napalm, magnesium, thermite, and phosphorus. Within hours, 99.5% of the city's 1.88 square miles of urban area was reduced to ash, making Toyama the most thoroughly destroyed city of World War II. Nearly 8,000 people were wounded and about 2,700 killed, while 5 minor industrial sites, including a gasworks, a steel plant, and a spinning mill, were erased from the map. For Bomber Command, the raid marked the successful completion of a shift in strategy from high-altitude precision strikes to low-level nighttime firebombing, which by this stage had already devastated 64 Japanese cities and achieved the destruction goals for Tokyo, Yokohama, Nagoya, Osaka, and Kobe for Japan. The cost was catastrophic. Not only the loss of industry and housing, but the near-total erasure of an entire city. This mission to Toyama stands as both a demonstration of American air power's effectiveness and a haunting example of urban annihilation at its peak during the war. To achieve the greatest possible destruction of the target, the table provided records in detail. The bomb load carried out on the missions of August 1st, with Mission 307 specifically designated as the firebombing of Toyama. On this operation, the 73rd Bomb Wing dispatched 173 B29 Superfortresses, which unleashed an immense volume of ordnance on the city. They dropped a total of 1,131 tons of M17 incendiary cluster bombs designed to ignite widespread fires, along with 60 tons of M19 incendiary clusters, which served a similar purpose in creating uncontrollable blazes. Added to this were 270 tons of M47 bombs filled with napalm, a highly flammable substance that spread burning liquid upon impact, and 4.4 tons of phosphorus-filled M47 bombs, which produced intense heat and fire upon detonation. To document the strike, 41 M46 photoflash bombs were also released, their purpose being to provide sufficient illumination for reconnaissance photographs. These photographs allowed military analysts to study the accuracy of bomb placement and to conduct a detailed assessment of the destruction, as can be seen in the images captured during and after the August 1st firebombing of Toyama. The mission itself was carried out under favorable conditions. The attacking bombers flew at altitudes between 12,100 and 13,600 feet, where clear skies allowed them excellent visibility. Wind speeds measured 13 knots, which was manageable for the crews. Anti-aircraft fire, known as flak, was encountered, both on the approach to and directly over the target, but it was highly inaccurate and ineffective in disrupting the bombers. Despite the intensity of the mission, no planes were lost either to enemy ground fire or to Japanese fighter planes. Out of the 173 aircraft that participated in the raid, only one sustained minor damage from flak, demonstrating the overwhelming superiority and safety of the bomber formation. Japanese searchlights, which were often used to trap enemy bombers in concentrated beams for targeting, were unable to effectively cone the American aircraft, and the city below was enforcing a blackout, further reducing the defenders' ability to strike back effectively. The results of the firebombing were catastrophic for Toyama. Out of the city's 1.88 square miles of developed, built-up urban area, 1.87 square miles were completely destroyed. This amounted to roughly 99.5% of the city being leveled, leaving Toyama virtually annihilated in a single night of bombing. To put this level of destruction in perspective, the second atomic bomb, dropped on Nagasaki, obliterated 1.88 square miles. But this accounted for only 36% of Nagasaki's built-up region. Thus, conventional firebombing in Toyama caused near-total devastation of the city's infrastructure and housing. According to a 1947 United States Strategic Bombing Survey report, the breakdown of destruction in Toyama shows that 1.81 square miles, or approximately 97%, was classified as urban damage, while 0.06 square miles, or 3%, was attributed to industrial facilities. The raid also wiped out 5 small industrial targets. Among them were the municipal gasworks, identified as Target 6251, the Nippon Steel Facility, Target 6261, and a spinning mill, Target 6250. In addition, 2 other industrial plants were destroyed but could not be identified with certainty. The scale of destruction left the city in ruins, demonstrating the sheer power of concentrated incendiary bombing and its devastating effect on both civilian and industrial centers. The devastation caused by this particular raid brings to mind an illustration that appeared in a September 1945 Air Staff report, which depicted the impact of a firebombing on a Japanese city that had been recorded as 66% destroyed. Beneath the image was a caption reading, "We also got a propeller plant." A grim reminder of how industrial targets were often listed alongside widespread urban annihilation. A corresponding tactical mission map carefully outlined the zones of destruction marking the city's 1.88 square miles of developed urban and industrial terrain within the outer boundary. Inside this boundary, the lightly settled or sparsely built sections were identified by clusters of dots, while the more heavily developed areas were shaded to indicate where firebombing had reduced them to rubble. The industrial facilities singled out in this record of destruction included the city's gasworks, an important energy provider, the Nippon steel plant, vital for war production, a spinning mill, which supported local industry, and 2 other factories that remained unnamed, but were nonetheless demolished in the attack. The cross-hatched regions of the map revealed the extent of the urban landscape that was obliterated, underscoring how little of the city's built environment remained intact after the bombing. When reviewing the data available from wartime and post-war surveys, I was unable to locate another city during World War II that suffered destruction exceeding 99.5% of its total developed area. This staggering figure forms the foundation for the conclusion that Toyama endured a level of devastation unmatched by any other city in the conflict, making it, in terms of percentage, the most thoroughly destroyed city of the entire war. A mission overview provided by the 21st Bomber Command further details the operation. According to this summary, the average payload carried by each bomber amounted to approximately 16,940 pounds, resulting in a collective bombardment of 1,465 tons dropped on the city during the raid. The method of targeting varied among the aircraft. 118 of them identified and attacked the city using radar guidance, which was crucial for precision under limited visibility, while 55 crews relied on visual sighting of the target to carry out their bombing runs. At the time the raid occurred, Toyama's population was estimated at around 127,000 people, meaning that the destruction of nearly the entire built-up area of the city directly affected a large civilian population alongside the industrial facilities. This combination of immense material ruin and the human toll illustrates why the firebombing of Toyama stands out as one of the most devastating single raids of the Second World War. In this clip, we watch a standard incendiary raid carried out by B-29s of the 21st Bomber Command, a mission intended to literally burn a city to the ground. On August 1, 1945, the command sent 180 to B-29s against Toyama. The aircraft carried firebombs loaded with incendiary agents such as napalm, magnesium, thermite, and phosphorus. The assault destroyed about 99.5% of the city, making Toyama the most devastated urban center of World War II and possibly one of the most thoroughly ruined cities in the history of warfare. This video aims to explain why Toyama was picked as a target, to walk through the mission plan and the incendiary loadouts, and to examine the bombing's results. As we go through the tactical mission report, the channel will pause to clarify technical points where needed. In March 1945, General Amei altered bombing methods to deal with adverse weather and the jet stream over Japan. Rather than continuing daytime, high-altitude, precision strikes on military-industrial sites, the campaign shifted to nighttime low-level, incendiary attacks on entire urban neighborhoods. That change proved highly effective. Roughly 64 Japanese cities were subjected to firebombing, together destroying about 169 square miles of urban core. The accompanying map plots the cities hit by B-29s during the war and shows Toyama among them. By June 1945, Bomber Command had achieved its damage objectives against Japan's 5 principal cities and began targeting smaller industrial centers. A June 1945 20th Air Force Operations document explains this shift, with the major targets largely exhausted. Cities like Toyama were next on the list. The 5 primary targets whose damage goals had been met were Tokyo, Yokohama, Nagoya, Osaka, and Kobe. According to the August 1945 21st Bomber Command Tactical Mission Report, 17 B-29 groups were committed on August 1st to strike 4 of these smaller urban areas. A map in that report shows their locations. That day also saw an unprecedented operational surge. In August 11, 1945, Air Intelligence Summary records that 851 B-29s were dispatched on August 1st, setting wartime records for both the number of B-29s launched and the total bomb tonnage dropped. September 1944 Air Target Folder map details Toyama and the positions of 5 principal industries within the 1.88 square mile city, situated roughly 5 miles from the inlet. The main installations identified include Target 861 aluminum and magnesium plants in 1944, Target 860 to the harbor, and Targets 941 and 1943 steel products plants. The chart also traces the bomber ingress and egress routes and marks the locations of RC rescue vehicle stations. The analysis also considers the bomber force needed to destroy the city. Planners estimated for groups about 180 B-29s would be required. based on a planning density of 225 tons of incendiaries per square mile of urban area. For a nighttime, radar-sighted raid, it was assumed only about 40% of bombs would fall within a circular error radius of 4,000 feet from the aiming point, and that roughly 90% of the aircraft launched would press home their attack, each carrying an average bomb load near 14,000 pounds. The main aiming point for the bombers was chosen at the southeastern edge of the city's castle. This position was close to the central mass of Toyama, which meant that almost the entire urban sprawl fell within a 4,000-foot radius from that point. Selecting this spot also offered the advantage of a strong radar return, which was crucial. For a night raid relying heavily on radar guidance, evidence from the mission's radar scope images shows how the location appeared at different scope settings. At a broader 25-mile resolution, both the initial point and the target could be identified, while at the finer 7-mile resolution, the southeast corner of the castle was visible, making it a clear reference point for bombardiers. The tactical mission map further illustrates the outline of the castle and pinpoints the designated MPI, showing a close-up that highlights the bombing focus. Nearly the entire city's built-up areas were captured within the 4,000-foot circle drawn on the objective map, which ensured maximum coverage of the urban core. Notably, none of the city's larger and more significant industrial complexes were situated inside this strike radius. Only a few smaller industrial targets, specifically a gasworks facility and a pharmaceutical plant, were located within the bombing zone. The rest of the enclosed area was overwhelmingly residential and commercial, which made the raid devastating to the civilian population. The mission notes also detail the reasoning behind the chosen bomb types and the specific mix of ordnance. Because Toyama had several firebreaks wide streets, or open areas intended to stop fires from spreading, the planners anticipated some limitation in how flames would move across the city. There were examples where these firebreaks had been effective, such as a wide street that managed to contain a firestorm on one side, sparing the buildings on the opposite side. To deal with both homes and small industrial facilities, the bomb load needed to include weapons that could penetrate structures before igniting. Japanese homes, shown in images from the period, were typically constructed with wood and paper, making them vulnerable to incendiaries but still requiring penetration bombs to ensure full ignition. The load plan reflected this. Roughly half of the bomber's payloads were 2 BM-47 bombs, each weighing 70 pounds and filled with napalm. These bombs were highly effective at smashing through roofs and starting intense fires, and their usage had been well documented in earlier raids. The other half of the bomb load was made up of M17 cluster bombs, each containing 110 small M50 bomblets filled with thermite and magnesium, designed to scatter over wide areas and ignite multiple fires simultaneously. Along with this, each bomber was assigned to carry one additional M47 loaded with white phosphorus instead of napalm, chosen specifically to discourage firefighting by creating extremely hot, difficult to extinguish fires. A photograph of a Japanese firefighting squad provides context for why such weapons were used. As local groups of civilians organized to combat the blazes, often with minimal equipment, before the raid began, all fuses were adjusted and bomb relief instruments were carefully calibrated to match the planned attack settings, ensuring bombs would detonate as intended in a radar-guided night mission. In later years, a local travel guide described the firebombing of Toyama, linking the city's destruction to its production of steel and ball bearings, though the strategic documents make clear that Bomber Command's selection of Toyama stemmed largely from the fact that Japan's largest industrial centers had already been burned and shattered in earlier missions. By mid-1945, there were few remaining large-scale targets, so Toyama and other smaller industrial cities were moved to the top of the list. In reality, the intent of the Toyama mission was not to single out factories but to obliterate its residential and urban space. The claim that Toyama was the most heavily bombed Japanese city in the war can be debated, since Tokyo endured larger numbers of raids and a higher tonnage of bombs overall. However, Toyama could credibly claim to be the most thoroughly destroyed city in terms of percentage of its built-up area lost. The consequences were severe. Approximately 8,000 people were injured in the attack, and around 2,700 lost their lives. The scale of destruction left the city almost entirely in ruins. If this detailed examination of the Toyama firebombing has been insightful, viewers are encouraged to support the channel by sharing thoughts in the comments, giving a like, or subscribing to World War II U.S. bombers for further historical